Most heartfelt greetings and salutations, ladies and gentlethems. I eagerly welcome you to Sturgeons' most premier station, Dusklight Radio, hosted by yours truly, the effervescent, incorporeal, infinitesimal Everett J. Blackwell. Perhaps you know of us? We ran the Crocodile and Crocodile Treats Farm. You remember, we had that special on dark matter caimans. Our mascot was called the Formless Caiman. He liked to manifest long enough to tell you about respecting nature, protecting the natural wildlife, and sharing his favorite musings from noted philosopher Franz Kafka. Then biting on unsuspecting, vulnerable prey while their guard was down before slinking back into his realm, food still in his jaws and begging us for help. But as you know, folks, you do not get in the way of Carl and his catch. Not ever. Not ever. I do miss him. If you're just joining us, first of all, welcome, and do not skip this. I promise each of these are unique in their own way. I don't employ a semi-sentient AI to watch David Lynch movies on repeat while typing this for nothing, you know. Just, ignore any cries for release. They're subliminal and not real. Anyway, I'm Dusklight's main and most fabulous half-dead host. My job at this fine radio station is to bring you some of the most twisted, interesting, and downright bizarre tales that I and my wonderful many-legged runners collect from the far corners of Sturgeon and beyond. Some of them will make you laugh, some of them will make you cry, and some will make you get out your smartphone, install the arbitrary Lundu crypto app, invest in Cerbercoin, and push it to the depths of the earth, no matter how much the voices beg you to stop. Cerbercoin to the underworld. It's time to introduce our story for this double feature evening in thanks of 100 subscribers in 24 hours. Y'all are too much. It's another entry for Max Voynich, one of the most ambitious experimental writers and connoisseurs of paint. I'm serious. This guy has a house just full of paint. He uses it for furniture, clothes, he drinks it. Sometimes his skin changes to match the paint, and one time he even blended into the surroundings while I was there like a chameleon. I could hear him, but I couldn't see him. All he whispered was, paint. Today's story, like rabbits, is a lot like the above statement. Strange, visually horrifying once you get the image in your head, and not at all what it seems to be. It's also about rabbits, so there's that. If you love Max's work, please consider checking out his subreddit link below and his podcast, Happy and We Know It, which takes a surreal look at one of television's forgotten classics, with something truly horrifying lurking underneath the surface. Special thanks must be given to Mandy Moe for rendering yours truly in the beauteous image you see when you look at our page. Next, Dusklight bows at the altar of Trevor Henderson, the man behind Siren Head, for allowing Dusklight to use some of the images he's captured of various abominations. Our cast today features narrator TJ Lee, Dusklight's very own janitor preferring to do this over dealing with the infestation of bone spiders, lazy son of a. And of course, lest we forget, some of the music you hear is provided by the Dark Somnium, with gracious thanks. With that, the sun has set and dusk has crawled into the studio once more. Whether you're working, prepping to sleep, or evading the formless void that will one day consume us all, Blackwell is here to soothe your ears and captivate your soul. Now, close your eyes and take a deep breath. The scene has been set and the light is on. It's time to walk towards it. The grass is slick with dew. The gravel path that leads to the manor is thin, meandering, and every second step I have to shift slightly so as to avoid a rabbit. In fact, you would be unable to walk anywhere, I think, on these grounds without at some point having to adjust your path to avoid one. They're fat, brown, sitting squat with wrinkled noses, those big black eyes staring up at you as they move their lips around a stalk of grass or a small flower. It's like the lawn has broken out in a rash, these small creatures carpeting it. And I think as I walk that there must be thousands of them, On the path, the lawn, the stone of the fountain, swarming the base of trees like furred mushrooms, stretched out in sunbeams. They're fearless, too. I think they know they have the lay of the land. Mr. Worrells continues speaking, his voice soaked in old money.
And so, what you must understand, old chap, is that we actually introduced the rabbits quite some time ago. Of course, one thing led to another, and I suppose there isn't much else to do, being a rabbit and all. And now look at the situation we're in.
I laugh in response. A reflex. This is his island, after all. Just off the south coast. Funded by his family's, shall we say, illustrious history. Part of me thinks I shouldn't have come. Something about the island makes me anxious. A cold sweat on my back despite the heat. My mouth perpetually dry. I feel like I'm intruding. I study him. Greying hair, thick mutton chop sideburns that carpet his face, his lips perpetually wet and puckered. His teeth are long, his tongue white. When he speaks, thin ropes of saliva form across his open mouth, like spider webs. And sometimes he'll dart his tongue out to wipe them away.
As I was saying, dear boy, once you have so many rabbits, all sorts of new options are afforded to you. My father, Truman R.R. Worrells, brought these rabbits to the island. They're not a native species, you see, and since then they've completely taken over, destroyed local wildlife. Isn't much of a concern for me. Never much like local wildlife anyway. Difficult. Unpredictable.
We've reached the end of the path now, and started ascending some steps, having to move from side to side to avoid these damned rabbits. These huge rabbits. The size of a small dog or cat. These fat and pampered rabbits that seem to glare at me, judging me.
The perfect climate for it, you see. My wife explains better than I do. They love the heat here. Really, they do. She's just waiting for us to start afternoon tea.
I nod, murmur something in agreement. I'm trying to act calm. I hate it. I hate the way he speaks and the way he addresses me, and I want to leave.
I don't see it as much as a boon. If anything, it's a great pleasure being so thoroughly swarmed.
He holds out his hands, wiggles his fingers to draw my attention to the tan leather gloves he's wearing.
Lots of rabbits means lots of skin, boy. Lots of skin means these lovely gloves. This jacket.
I notice now he's wearing a similarly coloured tan waistcoat under his blazer.
And so much more. The meat's not half bad either. In a stew or just fried and served on bread with mustard. A nice, sharp mustard. Maybe some leaves and herbs from the garden. The meat can be a little tough, but I think that adds character.
His mind wanders. His voice trails off. We're stood outside the main doors now, and I take a moment just to breathe it in. The sight of the whole grounds almost vibrating with rabbits. These clumsy, long-footed, stupid creatures that hop and nibble and stay silent. Something about these creatures terrifies me. Their mollified gaze, their little spasms that pass for movement, the way their eyes are all black and so it seems as if they're always watching. Their ears huge, upright, sun shining through the thin skin so I could see the thin web of veins beneath. I feel like all of them. The thousands twitching on the lawn. Are judging me. But for what? I'm lost for words. Try to offer something, but only speak in platitudes. So this is the famous Rabbit's Manor. He looks to me for a second, furrows his brow as if I've said something stupid, and I try and continue. To push on, as if saying something else might save my misstep. And these must be the famous rabbits. He shakes his head. Itches a sideburn. The sound is like sandpaper.
Old Bean, no. No. You couldn't be more wrong. This is the guest house. Rather grand, yes, I suppose, but the guest house nonetheless. And these aren't rabbits.
I blink. What?
These are hares, dear boy. Hares. Entirely separate species, much bigger too. You'd never find a rabbit as big as Bertrand here.
He points to a hare near our feet with a cane.
Does he know all their names? Or a rabbit as hardy?
A pause. He speaks again.
There must be some confusion.
You're right. I'm sorry. I just thought...
Don't apologize. Easy enough mistake to make.
An idea seems to settle in his mind, and a grin stretches over his face, parting his lips just a little so that the spit bubbles between them. He winks.
Right this way. I'll show you Rabbit's manor.
And so we walk round the guest house, stepping over the hares, occasionally having to tap one with a cane to get it to move, making our way through the trees and slowly up a set of stairs in the undergrowth. They're covered with moss, the old stone cracked and worn, and after a while my legs begin to ache. We finally reach the top. The path is overgrown and branches blot out the sun above us. Something's changed, though. There's a smell now like sweat or shit, a low buzzing, and a sound, faint but there. A sound like hundreds of small moans and wails and shouts. I feel my body tense in anticipation. I chew my lip, and in my mind I repeat 5 words. I should not be here. I should not be here. I should not be here. We keep walking to the end of the path, and there I am able for the first time to see Rabbit's manor. To see Rabbit's manor and its grounds. And there, carpeting its grounds in the same way the hares were before, are hundreds, if not thousands of bodies, of all shapes and sizes, all naked, pale, crouched or prone. Bodies laughing and fucking and moaning and screaming and pulling at their hair and slapping their own faces and shaking in the wet grass. Bodies bathing in the green water of the fountain, bodies climbing trees, bodies sick and old and blind and mute and some mewing like stray cats, and some just howling. Human bodies. They're all skin and bones. So thin it seems like the wind might snap them, and they move in terror and flinch as Mr. Wirrells walks out, cowering when he raises his cane, bounding around on all fours like dogs, whimpering and whining, all wide-eyed and slack-jawed.
These are the rabbits, dear boy. And this is Rabbit Manor.
And as my eyes raise to the vast, towering castle in front of me, I can make out 2 women sat in front, drinking cups of tea under a baby pink parasol, and they wave, blow kisses. I hear one of them laugh, a sound like broken china, smashed glass.
Why do we call them rabbits? Well, it's simple. They fuck like them. Like rabbits.
I wanted to slip out of my skin. I could feel the rabbit's eyes on me. I know it. Their eyes fixed on me, struck dumb and mute and watching.
We only started with a handful. And now look.
Around the women's feet, rabbits move, murmuring, drooling. I want to throw up. I taste bile. The sounds of the rabbits builds until it's all I can hear and I'm silent. The noise presses against my temples, throbs. Mr. Wirrells turns to me with a frown.
My apologies.
Wiggles his fingers, gestures to his wife and the other woman who are nibbling at white bread sandwiches and giggling.
After you, I find a cup of tea refreshing.
He winks.
Settles your stomach before a hunt.
You know something, listeners? This right here, this is why I don't keep rabbits. And why I don't like old men. Or old people, or just people in general. Too much of a hassle. I prefer being on my own here with minimal human, nightmare spectre contact anyway. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out some of our other transmissions. We're adding them regularly, and we'd love to have you as part of our Dusklight family by subscribing, hitting the bell if to spare. It's just the normal bell, but adding stuff like that is nice. And leave a comment with stories you'd love for my many-legged runners to find. And one last time, listeners, close your eyes and breathe with me. Remember, no matter how bad things are, Dusklight will be here to provide you with respite. Drink some water or your state-mandated potions. You matter, and you are loved. I'll see you again when the sun sets and dusk enters the station.